You're working on this new Chevette. You might have seen it on the Instagram post. It's pretty nice for a Chevette, really. It's got nice interior. It's got mirrors on both sides. One of the problems when I got it was that the door wouldn't open on the driver's side. Which happened to be because the hinge was so wore out. And I thought the pins were bad, but these cars use like a roll pin inside the hinge, but the hinges aren't bolted on. They're spot welded on from the factory. So now we're trying to figure out how to weld this part of the hinge back to the door. We're either going to try to take the door off and weld it, or we're going to try to drill some holes here and weld some little plugs back into there and try to hold that door up. Okay, just got back from the first test drive. Drove it about 15 or 20 miles. Ran good. Got this door fixed. All I did, I don't know how long it'll last, but I welded the hinge to the door in there so it can't be all sloppy anymore, and it seems to work. So there it is. The interior is pretty nice. I've got a center console for it and a horn button, but it's got a headliner in it, and the back seat looks good. So the outside could use a coat of paint, but judging by my other cars, I don't think that's going to happen. They worked on the Chevette late last night trying to fix some lighting issues inside. The dome light didn't work, which it's working now. It was just a fuse, but then anytime I try to turn my gauge lights on, which I can do now, can't see it because it's bright in here, but the light switch would start smoking. This is a switch out of the parts car, and it ended up being shorted out, so I fixed that. Now all my lights work. I took the radio out because it didn't work, and I'm gonna try to clean those gauges up, but I'll show you that other switch, what was wrong with it. Here's the old light switch, and you can see it got real hot and burned itself up. The lights and everything still worked, but it just didn't do anything with the dash lights. And here's the plug. It melted, so I cut all that out of the other car and put in there, and now it seems to work pretty good. Working on the new Chevette, the little 4-cylinder, trying to get this thing ready to drive on the road. What I've done so far that I didn't film is I put new shocks on it. I just got some AC Delco shocks off of Rock Autos, like 60 bucks for all four. So today I'm getting ready to do the rear brakes on it because the pedal's pretty soft, and when I had the tires off to do the shocks, I noticed that this one looked a little damp inside, like the wheel cylinder might be seeping, so I got new wheel cylinders and shoes and the hardware kit. So we're gonna get that put on and get this thing ready to drive down the road. Got the big 7-inch drums off the back of the Chevette. This is the one on the passenger side. It's a little slimy inside. Here's the brakes on the car. It's got a bunch of residue and stuff, like this wheel cylinder's blown out on this side. So we're going to go ahead and replace both the wheel cylinders and the shoes and all the springs and get this thing back on the road. Side is all torn down, got the wheel cylinder and stuff out. Got it kind of cleaned up, sprayed a bunch of brake clean on it. So we're going to get the new wheel cylinder put in and get the lines and stuff hooked back up so I don't lose all my brake fluid. But got the wheel cylinder installed in the car. These here, they use a little clip instead of bolts. I don't know if you can see that. It's just like a spring clip that clips them in from the back side. So that's kind of fun to get to on a car this small because you can't get your head back there to look at it. But got that in. Now we're getting ready to get the shoes put back on it and throw this thing back together. Got this side all put back together. Got the drum painted black because everything looks better when you paint it black. Just getting ready to get this side thrown together. I got the wheel cylinder in and line on and the little goofy clip pushed on there. So get this side put on and get this back on the ground, probably bleed the brakes and call it good. Okay, here they are assembled without the drum. I didn't get a video of the other side before we got it put together, but looks like pretty much any drum brake other than the fact that it's half the size. So about ready to get this car back down on the ground and see if the pedal feels any better. Got the brakes done on this thing. Now we're going to work on the next part, which I'm going to replace the carburetor. This carburetor seems to run fine. It's just not getting very good fuel mileage. And I think it's something to do with the fact that this is one of the they're electronically controlled carburetors, and it's got a whole bunch of vacuum lines that go over here to a bunch of solenoids and things, and I don't know if any of that stuff even works because they have the fuse out of the computer. The ECM fuse is out of it. So I'm going to replace the carburetor with a carburetor I found on eBay. Is a factory reman Holley 5210, which is what would have come on a 79, I believe, an earlier Chevette, which is all mechanical. So you get rid of all the electronic stuff off of it. And I've had these on other Chevettes that will get close to 50 miles to the gallon. So I'm going to get this set on there, and hopefully that'll fix my fuel mileage problem. But it should be a simple bolt-on piece. Here's the old carburetor off of the car. As you can see, it's got a lot going on as far as vacuum canisters and things that go on it, and it's got two plug-ins. One is I believe this one here is an electronic vent solenoid, and I'm not sure what this down here does, but as you can look at this carburetor here, it has none of that. It's got a mechanical linkage. It's a progressive 2-barrel, so as you add more and more throttle, once you get to around, I think 30 or 40%, it starts opening up the secondary. Once you get there, then it opens the second one. So you're normally just cruising on 1 barrel and get that good fuel mileage. And there's nothing vacuum actuated to hang up, which is what this carburetor was doing, is it would hang up the secondary and keep it open. So getting ready to get these replaced. Got the carburetor out of here, working on cleaning this up, getting rid of all the vacuum lines and stuff. I got rid of the evap canister because I don't need that. Got rid of this nonsense that was tied into the smog pump. Here's the vacuum lines that I got rid of. So the only other thing to get out of the engine bay, if I can get to it tonight, is the whoever had this car before, they took the smog pump off like most people do, but they just left the back side of it just hanging out down there by the exhaust manifold, and that kind of rattles around going down the road. So I'm going to try to get that out of there also. Got the new carburetor on, it's running, sounds pretty good. Engine bay's a little cleaner. I didn't do anything with the wiring, but I did get rid of a bunch of the stuff that we don't need anymore. Like all the vacuum lines that were in here. Got rid of what was left of the smog pump over here. So now I can clean up the wires once I figure out what I don't need, because the only wire this needs has a little wire that goes up there, and then the wire for the choke. Doing a little bit to help it look a little better. Hopefully it'll run a little better also. Today, not doing anything as far as drivability. We have put a new thermostat in it and got the choke working on the carburetor, but we're going to cut the springs on the front, because if you've seen earlier in the video, this thing sits about 3 or 4 inches higher in the front than it does in the back. So we're getting started on the driver's side, because I think it'll take longer to do, because I've already had the passenger side apart. But we'll get this taken apart and see how the coils look. Got this thing torn apart on both sides. I don't know, it took about 10 minutes to pull it apart. So getting the coils ready to cut. Here is the coil we just cut. cut 1.5 coils off of it, and for comparison, here is the factory coil, so hopefully that'll drop it enough and not too much. So get this other one cut and throw them back in the car and see what they look like. Okay, we got it buttoned back up. We're gonna let it down and see how low she sits. Hopefully it'll sit as low as the red one over there.
Perfect.
Let's roll it out so we can see. Oh, that looks much nicer. Now it's sitting pretty much level front to back, and we don't have a 4-inch gap above our fender. So that'll be it for this video. Now this car's ready to go, and we will see it later on, I'm sure. But thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and leave a comment below.